How many of you heard of Sherwood Baptist Church? A few hands up out there. If you don't know who they are now, you will in just a moment. Sherwood Baptist Church is in Albany, Georgia, the county seat of Dougherty County, Georgia. Albany has about 75,000 people. Gulfport has a population of about 65,000. So that again gives you a size of the community that Sherwood Baptist Church is in. And Sherwood's not the biggest church in Albany, Georgia. But some time ago, Michael Catt, their pastor, preached on Acts 1:8, just like I'm doing to you this morning. And Michael Catt looked at his congregation at Sherwood Baptist Church, just like I'm looking at you now. And Michael Catt looked at them with the conviction of Christ, just like I am convicted now. That the world is indeed within our grasp. We're nothing as big as, I think Sherwood was about 800 people at the time, which is, wow, way bigger than Main Street. But it's still, for a pastor to say, the world, 800 people? 2003, Sherwood Baptist Church, with all their money they could scrape up together, with actors from their own people, with equipment that they begged, borrowed, and rented, produced a little short film called Flywheel. Not many of you seen it. It's on video or DVD now, if you'd like to go back and look it up. It was no commercial success by any means. It was a financial loss. It may be making up for it now, but at the time, they gave all this money to buy this film that didn't really do much. You know how churches are real fond when they pay a lot of money for something that doesn't do much. Well, in 2007, they produced their first full-length motion picture, a little film called Facing the Giants. Church's money, church's actors, church's people. I think they brought in they had a couple volunteers from the National Football League, a couple sound engineers that came over and helped them mix and record some of the stuff. Otherwise, it's just volunteers. With a budget of $100,000, the church scraped together out of their own pockets. The film eventually grossed $10 million. With that $10 million, they produced another little film called Fireproof, which the budget on that wasn't nowhere near $10 million, but it was the seed money that produced Fireproof. In 2008, it grossed $33 million in the theaters, with DVD sales at $30 million. So that's $60 million. And the $30 million they made off of Fireproof, that's close to $100 million. But you know what? Money doesn't matter. Nobody cares about the money at Sherwood Baptist Church. Because every penny of that money goes to missions. What they set out to do. And now their films, Fireproof and Facing the Giants, are being released in South Korea free. Because they made enough money in the U.S. that they were able to send these films that teach the gospel of Christ in practical and entertaining ways around the world for free. Last year, as you know, in 2011, Courageous was released. We went to see that. Did you feel like a missionary when you bought a ticket? You were. Did you feel like you were doing an act of missions when you bought these other movies and you bought these books? You were. Because they take this money and they use it for missions. That's what it's intended for. Up to now, Courageous it's only grossed $30 million, but it's only been out 3 months. Who knows how far it's going to go? All because a relatively small congregation, I know 800 people to us is nothing small, but in terms of the world, an 800-person organization decided, yeah, we want to do what Jesus said in Acts 1:8. We're with you, we'll go, we'll do, we'll give up, whatever we got to give up, we'll go. And now these films are going worldwide for free because we bought tickets. and because we're telling our friends and our neighbors and they're receiving the gospel as well. Missions can be just that easy. Well, yeah, Brother Kelly, we could do that too. If we had made $100 million off our last 2 films, we could go make the Regis. Tell you, go ask Sherwood how fun it was when they made Flywheel with money out of their own pockets and it lost money. When they had to eliminate some programs and services in their church because they spent so much money on Flywheel that they couldn't afford to do those anymore. Ask them how fun that was. I bet at every business meeting, everybody just voted yes right away on the budget. Because we're cutting programs and services because we're sticking all this money into this movie with no idea whether it's going to have any impact, whether it's going to work. Somebody has a vision that says we can reach the world this way. And that's all they had to go on. I imagine there was a good bit of fighting that went on. A good bit of internal struggle. But the core group of the church said, yes, we will fulfill the requirements of Acts 1:8. They gave much more than their money. They had to give sacrificially of their time because the church could not afford staff members. They had to give sacrificially above and beyond their money, their normal tithe, to be able to fund the movie and the church. They gave sacrificially from their likes and their preferences in order to see this vision built to fulfill the Acts 1:8 requirements. They might have preferred that services be held on certain ways and certain styles, but they had to change all that because of the vision. And they gave all that up, and now they reap the reward. Are you willing to commit to Acts 1:8? Are you willing to give sacrificially of time, money, resources, of preferences, of likes, in order to see new souls won to the gospel, new people believing in Jesus Christ? Now, in the coming weeks, we're going to be on this theme, and I'm giving you the smackdown today, okay? And we're going to explain it in the next few weeks, what it means. But know this, and look at the bottom of your handout there. It says, the way of the church. What is it? What is the way of the church? Well, thankfully, we're no Sherwood. And as far as I know, and God has shared the future of the church with me in bits and pieces, but I don't see motion pictures in our future, okay? That's Sherwood. That's not Main Street. You know the way of the church? The church goes whichever way the rock that is built on rolls. A church will go whichever way the rock that it is built on rolls. So if we are built on the foundation, the cornerstone, Jesus Christ, we have no choice but to fulfill the commandments of 1:8. Because that's the way that particular stone is going to roll. Taking the gospel to the world. But if we are built on pleasing ourselves, pleasing the majority of the congregation, if we are built on a foundation of our own making, then our church will sit right where it is. Because that foundation ain't going nowhere. It's going to sit right here for another 125 years if Jesus tarries that long. And remember, these principles are interchangeable. A believer is going to go in whichever direction the foundation, their faith is built on, rolls. If your faith is built on the rock, the foundation of Jesus Christ, even when you think He's asking too much, He's asking you to go too far, you got no choice but to go with Him. Because you're resting on it. You're stuck to it. or we can rest on ourselves. And then he comes back and says, what you been doing while I was gone? And we won't be able to do anything but stutter. Then I ask you a couple questions at the bottom, a couple simple questions for you to answer for yourself. Where are you today? Are you rolling along with the rock of Christ, or are we squat on a set foundation? In the coming days, as we go through this study, this question, we're all going to have to ask ourselves. I'm going to have to ask myself. We're going to have to resolve. It's a question we're going to have to answer about our church. Are we rolling? Are we going with the foundation, the rock of Jesus Christ, or are we set on our haunches? Are you ready to face Jesus and Him look at you and say, what's the last thing I told you to do? Are you ready to answer that question?